everyone. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good morning and welcome to Government Day, the 13th of September, 2024 in Augusta. Andy Hunthausen here, Tom Rolfe, Commissioner Tom Rolfe, Jenny Chambers, Director of Public Works, Candace Payne, Commissioner, Sheriff Dutton's over here, and we have Betsy Kirkby back here, and Amber Johnson is just a flash through, and we have former Commissioner Giese walking in the room. Yay! Yay! The crowd goes wild and the parade starts. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So, yeah, there's sign-in sheet up here as well as agendas, and
Good morning.
I'm stalling because he's washing his hands. That's all right. Well, we can move on.
No, sure.
It is first. So I'll do a reminder as we're waiting for a second here. We now, since July 1, must, according to the legislature, video record all of our meetings, and we must post those by within 5 days of the meeting on. We now have a YouTube channel, if you will, I think, right, Betsy? We have a YouTube channel, so everything's posted. We also back up our voice recording, which we've always done, and we do minutes as well. But the change is, and it's kind of been a learning experience for all of us because we've had such an informal and casual conversation when we have public comment or have questions or whatever. But we're going to try and have everyone, if you remember, come up to the podium. So I will have our different folks that are on the agenda speak. We'll entertain public comment after they speak. And if you have public comment, we'll just invite you up to the podium to state your name and that you're from Augusta, and then give your comment. If you're unable to do that for some reason, then we will make arrangements for you to speak from your seat. But I'll try and remember as we go along. Sometimes we get halfway through the meeting, we revert right back to our old ways. So each month we'll try and get better, though, right? We're in this together. Okay. So we'll start with Sheriff Dutton. Welcome, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
The meetings have not been very funny the last few because you haven't been here.
Well, they're not going to get any better, but I'll give it a shot. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. There was I don't know if you saw the news that there was down in Denver, they had an aquatic escape, or the animals of the aquatic division escaped. Yes, no? No, it was an otter disaster.
Oh, no.
They,
Not improved yet. Keep working at it.
Where's the hook?
yeah. You know, I'll just set the bar for anybody else who wants to try to do better. That's the challenge. Anyway, your sheriff's office has been very busy. The guy that is stationed here, clearly not here today, he's been busy. You probably see him out on the road doing traffic and investigating different things. So, from what I hear, he's doing a good job, and if you have issues, you talk to him. From the report that I got, the Augusta rodeo went well. We had a few dust-ups, but not many. And I hope that get a good report, or get the report, whatever it was, that I think you discussed at another meeting. And from what I know, it went good. So the other things that are happening in Helena, I'll just start with the current thing. Current thing is there's a fly buzzing around here, but anyway, the current thing was a unexpected flash flood out by Canyon Ferry. It was off of Jimtown Road, and had a former deputy that lives out there, Mike Farron, but he's done a lot of prep work, and that it didn't flood him. He lives up a little higher, but it did flood lower. The Horse Gulch fire had went through there, and it was hot enough that it makes the soil what they call hydrophobic, that it is not able to absorb the water. That's a nice thing about having trees and grass. It does absorb a lot of that water, and you don't get that water flow. It came down in just record heights. They sent me the pictures of how much water came through there. It was quite a deluge for a short amount of time. The water is not absorbed, and on it comes. I'm not nuts, that stupid fly's gonna die. Anyway, so the sheriff's office responded, search and rescue responded. I don't know if you've ever been to Riverside Campground. As you come down from the village and you come around the corner, there's a campground there, camp post. Just after the camp post, that's where they were gonna put the boat in. That's how high the water was. The deputies had to walk up around the mountain to get to the campers, the people who were camping, tell them, we're gonna get you, you'll be okay. They didn't panic. That was the important part. They were afraid, because it was like the Johnny Cash song of How High is the Water moment. Because it continued to rise. They didn't see the end in sight, but they knew help was coming. If they would have panicked, they would have drove right into the most swiftest water that was there, and they would have been swept out to the Missouri River, and that would not have ended well. So I applaud them for, you can be afraid, but if you panic, that's when bad things happen, and they didn't. So we appreciate that. We appreciate the fire department, Tri-Lakes Fire, that responded, and they closed Jimtown Road. Another big thanks goes out to Lewis and Clark Public Works, who responded out, worked late into the night, they set up roadblocks, they tried to get the road to where it was somewhat passable, but they needed to clean out culverts and all that kind of stuff. Got on it the next day. I would say it was a Herculean effort to make sure that the road became passable. Anyway.
It isn't just you,
Yeah, okay.
Sheriff. We've got a couple others.
Apparently wore the wrong cologne this morning because I'm attracting the wrong friend. But anyway, there was a good response from our first responders, and the county public works did a great job. They reopened the road. The reason that's important to you is because they would do the same for you. If it happened up here, they would do the same. And you hear like, oh, okay, well, that was close to Helena. Gonna look bad. Anyway, hey, thanks, bye. That's the kind of service that you get out of the people who work for you. Other things that have been happening, we've had a full jail, and it's been close, yep. I know I'm being recorded, otherwise I'd use some other words, like specific anatomical, you stupid elbow. Anyway, their jail's been full. We've had Department of Corrections have had an overload. Did you get them?
Thanks, I'm sorry.
Good, hallelujah. The Department of Corrections had over 50 in our detention center. The highest we got was 201, and we're only supposed to, if you remember, we went for 156 to 160 max redo, or had our existing jail refurbished. But when you get that many, you're sleeping on the floor. And most of the judges have worked with us. They won, but we're doing well. There are some warrants that we're not bringing in, from misdemeanor warrants. We're either taking them to the judge, or depending on where we're at, we won't load them up and take them to the judge, but we'll tell them, you gotta get in there, you gotta see the judge. So it's an issue. DOC has, through immense pressure through the Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and others, have really brought some pressure to bear about getting those people out. They're full over there, so they got extra beds out of state and have shipped people out. We're down to 168 this morning, and that's still overloaded, but we at least now have room to walk. And it was bad. The hard part is you can't plan for meals, anything. If you have, we have really a routine of about, well, we like to keep it at 156. Actually, we'd like to have it a lot smaller, but the day is coming. Helen is growing, and Lewis and Clark County is growing. Your area is growing. So if you have 15,000 people that move in 10 years, you're gonna have 500 that will be guests of my bed and breakfast. I just assume they not, but that's just the statistics that the FBI uses. The patrol division has been busy. They've had some great cases, some of them that have not made it to the court yet, but I'll tell you, the men and women that are working there are working hard every day to make sure, one, predators online are held to justice. That seems to be a real popular thing of trying to lure young kids for a date when they have other intentions, such as rape, and that we do not tolerate. But it takes a special skill to get online, pretend that you are a 12, 13-year-old girl, and lure these people in. We have the assistance of the FBI, and we have worked hard with that. There's a lot of other cases that are going on. So you'll be surprised at where the tentacles go, that when you start looking at these cases, some of the people that leave Midwest America will travel through like this area here. And you know it's happened. They've come in and they pose as either a vacuum cleaner salesman or some other backstory that they have. They knock on the door, they show up to your house in the middle of the day, and they have some brochures about whatever they're selling. But if you don't answer the door, they're going to kick the door in and rob you of your jewelry and your guns. So I don't know if you have the opportunity to invest in a security system such as a Ring security system. I suggest that. Those things are helpful. I know some of you live a ways away, but have a plan. And again, don't panic. If somebody comes into your house and you are there, you have the right to defend yourself. You have the right to defend your home. And I'll leave it at that. Call 911. Make sure that you call 911 if you can, and say somebody's breaking into your house, and say this: I am afraid for my life. You need to say that. And you need to say that out loud when the person, whoever they may be, in your house, it's in there, it says, I am afraid for my life, and I have a gun. And then shoot. After that, it's in their court, what they do. So, it's a bit of, it's not quite hunter safety information, but it's survival. And it's not easy to kill another human being, I'll tell you that. Everybody talks about it, but it's not easy. I don't wish that on anybody. Be sure of your target and beyond. Be sure that your gun, that you know how to use it. If that's what you choose to use, you can use pepper spray. You can use several other things. Make sure that you're proficient in it. Some people will say, well, I've got a gun, but when the bad person sees you and you're standing there like this, the best place to be is right in front of you, because you're not going to hit them. But if you're clear and positive and you're resolute, and when your voice, do the best you can, sometimes that'll turn them around right there, and you don't have to shoot. Remember, the goal is not to have to kill somebody. The goal is to get them back out of your house, and for them not to steal your stuff, get them caught, and get them prosecuted. We will do everything we can to get them. But we haven't had that for a while. I bring that up as an anecdotal story of it has happened up here, daylight burglaries, and that's their cover story. Mr. Chair, any questions?
Commissioners, any questions?
I have a question. Leo, back to the overcrowding at our jail. When Department of Corrections decides they're going to send some more people up to you, do you have the right to say, nope, we can't take any more, we're full?
That is true. I do. That's out of a court case from Missoula, but most almost 99% of those DOC commits came up through our system. So they are ours, they were our inmates to begin with. So they were sentenced and awaiting transportation to the DOC, Department of Corrections, and waiting transportation to Deer Lodge. They shut down the holding facility over in Missoula called MAF. It was a treatment center that they didn't want to fund anymore. So that took away some beds. They used to send people over there, and now they don't have those. So that was one of the problems of the backup. They were able to send them over to Missoula or different spots. Now we're working with them to have beds. They do pay, Department of Corrections do pay you, but the average cost is about $123 a day, and they pay $82.25. My issue is that it costs my bosses to make up the delta. You make up the difference between 123 and 82. So that's the local citizens, and they see it as, well, it all tax money, but I don't. I see it as, that's my local bosses are making up the difference out of their pockets. When DOC pays, it comes out of a large pot of money from the whole state. That's how I see it. It's only my opinion, not necessarily that reflects on the management and staff, just my opinion. So before I think of another bad joke, anything else?
Commissioner, anything else? No, you're good, okay.
Former
So,
commissioner.
reminder, and there are a couple of new people came in, but we're gonna, invite people up to, we'll take public comment now, or questions for the sheriff, but we'd like you to come up and be on camera. Pretty please, yes. Commissioner Easy.
So I have a question for you, Sheriff. How are we
State
doing
your name.
on, detention officers? Is that continuing to be a struggle? How much are we paying those guys? And that's always such a big challenge, and I was just wondering how many detention officers you need.
Right now, we are critically short. We're authorized to 62 detention officers. Right now, we're running at 48. So we are short. Well, you start as a detention officer, I believe, at $22 an hour, and we're going to talk about getting that money up. And it's just an allocation of, okay, if we put that wage higher, then where do we take it from other places? And I'm trying to balance that with discretionary spending, or where are we buying patrol cars? You have to move the money, but having people in detention, having detention officers is critical because they burn out quick, all of those kinds of things. So we're trying to we're trying to improve the intrinsic leadership, those kind of things. People, no matter how much you pay them, if the job is an unhealthy environment, they won't work there. If it's a super healthy environment, they'll want to work there, but can they afford it? Can they afford to rent? And that's what I'm facing right now, is a lot of them can't even afford, if they get the job, there's places that they just can't afford to rent. That's been our biggest thing. I will tell you from a tragedy, a friend of mine last year was killed, Sheriff King down in Bighorn County. I went down there to help and talk to the county commissioners, what the county commissioners had done, because they faced the same thing. Montana seems to be, well, it's nationwide. What Bighorn did is they bought a big apartment complex, and they lease it out to the county folks that don't have a place to stay. When they're trying to advertise, get people to stay there, if you're an employee there, you can rent an apartment there. And that's really helped them with their employment situation. So that's something, it's different times, and we're gonna have to think differently. We're going to have to take a different approach. We can never go back. Just if we go back to 2019 thinking, well, we'll just go back to doing business as we did before, it's not gonna happen. We have to move forward. We have to think of new ways, how to attract people, how to get them here, and it never will return the way it was. That's just a fact. And I've come to grips with it. I wanted it to go back, but it's not going to. We have to figure out life is different. So, does that answer your question?
Thanks a lot, Sheriff.
Yep.
Thanks. Other questions or comments for the sheriff? Welcome.
You look better on camera than I do.
Doubt it. Susie Taylor, Augusta Chamber of Commerce. Just wanted to say thank you to the sheriff, because the chamber, well, when rodeo started to come up, we started getting really concerned about things that had happened the years prior, violence, basically. And I worked with your sergeant, I forget who was in charge. Rygaard. And I understand there's limited budget hours for these guys to be up here. And they were willing and did shift their hours somewhat to have more coverage Sunday after the rodeo as opposed to Friday night, because that's where the action happens, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the,
Mr. Chair,
hopefully?
we do work for you and we do listen. It's one of those things of kind of predicting, actually the rain is easier to predict than when you're gonna get a good crowd, but you guys generally know, the businesses know what is going to happen if you're having an event. And sometimes you can predict a lot, your hunting season, and you predict a large elk herd is gonna be there, and there's nothing but grasshoppers. So together, I think we'll continue to get better, and that's what we wanna do every time. We're not gonna be perfect, but we can improve a little bit every time, and you go, yep, it worked for me. That's cool.
Thank
Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, Sheriff. All right, we're gonna move on to Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jenny Chambers, Oscar County Public Works. I've got a few just general updates from Public Works, and then I'm gonna get into the support with the Montana Department of Transportation on the traffic evaluation that was done up here. But first off, just to start a little bit with buildings or facilities. As you guys have seen over the last year or so, we've done a lot of improvements on this community senior center. We're wrapping up with just some of the last minute projects that we kind of had planned for this building. So this room in here has been painted. The senior center's been freshly coated, painted, and then the outside's just been, the stain has been re-stained, and then the doors and windows have been painted as well. And just in a spirit of preservation and trying to, keep this building something that the community wants to value and something the community wants to use, and kind of make it a place that you can have family events and hosts and things like that. So just knowing we're kind of wrapping those up. We don't have anything in the forecast for next fiscal year, or this fiscal year's for budget, but it is something that we periodically look at to see what projects we can do to keep the building maintained. When I first started about 2.5 years ago, when I came in here, it was just the particle board, and people said that people hosted wedding receptions and stuff like that. That was one of my wishes, was just to say, if you're taking a family photo, wouldn't it be nice to have a nice background and have something for your family to look at in the future versus looking at particle boards. So hopefully it's been well received within the community, and we'll continue to look at projects as we move forward. Also in just the road department, Lewis has been definitely busy up here. We completed mowing on 435 in Mannix. We completed pothole patching this week. That was a conversation at the last month's Augusta Government Day, and we did get a crew up here to get some pothole patches within the community. As always, if there's something that you guys identify that we're not up here on a regular basis, either let Lewis know or feel free to give me a call, and we'll get that on the list to get completed. The bridge department did some road bank stabilization on Elk Creek Bridge number 5. That's just past Krause's residence. They rip-wrapped the shoulders and added road base to that area as well. And then we're gonna just continue for the fall and winter is to continue to grade, try to add material where we can, at least until it freezes up and we kind of shift from fall grading into snow removal and getting prepared for the snow season. So that's where we're at within the road department. Now I'd like to introduce as well Jimmy Combs with the Great Falls District. He's a Great Falls District engineer. He oversees Dan Block, who is the individual that completed the traffic evaluation for the traffic study.
Could you wave your hand?
Right here, sorry.
Okay.
Do you want me to come up there?
Yeah, sure. I can kind of tag team this a little bit.
Sure.
So commissioners, as you guys recall, Lewis and Clark County U.S. commissioners provided a letter to MDT asking for that traffic calming evaluation based upon public comment during Government Day. The evaluation was on South 435 to US 287 from Lover's Lane to Worthing Road. And the purpose of the evaluation was to review vehicle volumes, vehicle speeds, parking, pedestrian activity, and road, on this roadway in this particular area. And we focused the study, MDT did, per your guys' request, to be during the peak tourist season. So it was June of this year. June of last year, excuse me. So the report, there's a couple up here for you guys if you need it or want to grab one. I did about 7 copies. If you want a copy and there's not one available, you can give me your email address and I can get it emailed to you as well. But it kind of goes through the background. It goes through some of the crash data information that has occurred on that stretch. It does a really good speed data analysis where they collect basically traffic data within the different traffic years as far as traffic counts, which is average daily traffic. It provides the pace of the traffic. And it was really interesting, so I'm not necessarily a traffic engineer, but the traffic engineers in both MDT and Dan Carlin, our county engineer, was really impressed with, there's bell curves in this report that shows a very tight bell curve span based upon the percentile of folks that complied with the speed study. There's always one-off situations, and there's always times of the year where that might not be true, but during the time when this data was collected, the 85th percentile was definitely within the 25 mile an hour speed limit zone, and the mean, which is the average, was around 21 miles per hour. So there's always people that speed on the high end. There's people that might drive way too slow if you get behind them, but on average, it falls within that as far as the data collection. So that was observed during the study. The crash history is in the report. There hasn't been a lot of crashes. We're looking back at a 5-year crash history based upon the area of time. All reported crashes had no apparent injury or only property damage only, so that's a good thing. I mean, you don't necessarily want to have serious injuries that occur or fatalities, but the crash data is something that the traffic engineers do look at from a safety and safety improvement standpoint. The study also looked at existing traffic control devices, what's in place. Signage is one of those, parking markers to indicate where no parking zones is another indication of traffic control devices. Plus you have nice curbs and you have nice sidewalks within the Main Street areas. That's also a kind of a traffic control device. So Augusta is set up a little bit different where you're coming into a main street. There's sidewalks on the side if you're driving in your car. In comparison to Lincoln, where Lincoln has open areas, there's a little bit of difference on whether or not you're actually going on Main Street or whether you're not. So that's a traffic control device they evaluated. They looked at pedestrian activity and kind of evaluated that as a whole. They counted the number of pedestrians that crossed, like on 6/24/2024, during a time period of 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, there was 109 pedestrian crossings. So they watched the people and the people that cross the street back and forth. So on one particular day in 1 hour, there was 109 people that crossed the road back and forth. And even in the 15 minutes that I was here prior to when the meetings start, you see a lot of people just kind of going back and forth across the different sidewalk areas. So that was also evaluated. There's a couple things that we should also mention. As part of the MDT's chip sealing project that's getting wrapped up, they, as part of the project, if it's not done already, I didn't look to see when I came in, it will be done, but they're gonna repaint the parking on the curb to make it darker based upon that project. So if it's not done yet, because I forgot to look when I came in, and Jimmy did as well, we'll look when we go out, but it should be done this month. It's done. Say yay, you guys observed that, so.
Fresh yellow paint around the corners.
Fresh yellow paint where you're not supposed to park, where it's supposed to prevent that stuff from occurring. So that was a good thing from this report as well, and part of that project. And then just in closing, there were some recommendations in this report for the commissioners to consider and for public works staff to continue to evaluate. One of those is they evaluated the signage as you come into town. And I might have Jimmy talk about this a little bit more in detail. Right now, you go from 70 to 55 to 35 to 25 on one corridor, and the other one's like 50 to 30 to 20. That doesn't meet the current MDT requirements or standards. So one of the options for the study is that we can upgrade those signages to have a more gradual transition on when you start to slow down into town. That would then eventually allow you to get to that 25-mile-an-hour speed zone more gradually versus just getting to a slower transition. So I'll let the traffic engineer talk about that piece and the standards a little bit.
So on 287, as you're coming into town now, westbound, there's currently a 55-mile-per-hour transitional speed zone, then it breaks down to 45, and then it goes from 45 to 35, and then it breaks down to 25. Likewise, on 287 eastbound, it goes 55 to 45 to 35, and then down to 25 before you come to the stop sign. Forward on the, I'm gonna call it the west end of town here, southwest end of town, 435, you transition from 70 to 50, and then you go from 50 to 40, and 40 to 25. And so what Jenny is getting at is the way those transitional speed zones, the lengths of them and the way they're spaced out right now, we've changed our practice in the kinds of lengths that we like to have in those transitional speed zones. And so what you're going to end up seeing is this will go to the commission for their consideration, and once we get comments back from the county, we will take it to the Transportation Commission, who will enact an interim. But basically, I won't know that unless any more than anybody has questions about it. But the long and short of it is where you see those transitional speed zones now, they're all going to get stretched out. The one that I don't know if it'll change the length right off the top of my head is the 45 on as you're coming in from Shoto. That 55 to 45 is pretty long now, so the length of that transition probably won't change, but it'll all get shifted farther out. Is there any questions about that or any confusion about that?
Yeah, so as you're starting to come into town, where you would have 70 to 50, you'd probably start slowing down to 50 a little bit further out of town. So you have a little bit more gradual transition on longer lanes. And I think that would help a lot with the campers and a lot of the horse trailers and stuff like that, where they're taking in their heavy loads, where you're coming in and you're not just hitting those Jake brakes and hitting them harder. As you're coming in, they would slow down longer distance, slow down longer distance. So is the theory behind that. So that is one of the main recommendations in here, and that MDT's asked us to consider that, and the commissioners to consider that, and then we have to provide a recommendation back to them about whether we want them to proceed with that interim solution, to evaluate that, to see how that works moving forward. Another option, and I know we talked about some of this preliminary during the time when we were requesting the traffic evaluation, was the other communities, and there is a ability to do pop-up devices within the Main Street areas. You can do, during the peak tourist season, you can put up traffic control devices that are kind of pop-up temporary structures that could have like a designated crosswalk location. So between like the senior center and the general store, you could have a crosswalk where it would have to funnel all the pedestrians to that one area to cross the street. That's just an option in here as a potential recommendation from MDT, but MDT does not have funding to implement something like that. They would work with Lewis and Clark County. If we were able to find funding or grant money to do that, we would have to get an excavation permit or a encroachment permit, work with MDT, work on getting that permitted to allow us to put that in place. At this time, from Public Works staff perspective in our review, we aren't necessarily going to that option yet, or want the commissioners to consider that. One, we don't have the funding. Two, we have to try to get the grant funding. And the third issue is there's a concern through the MDT evaluation report that it would minimize and impact the parking that's currently in place. Because you'd have to evaluate line of sight, you probably have to take out some parking spaces, and I know parking is a huge issue up here already. And then you have to retrain everybody to be like, walk down the sidewalk, go to that temporary crosswalk area, cross the road. And I just know that with all the people that cross the roads, where they're gonna cross it, when you're bar hopping and you go from one bar to another bar and back to the other bar, are people really gonna comply with that temporary control device, or should we just look at the other measures and continue with trying to do the best we can within the traffic evaluation? So that's the report today, commissioners, and just wanted to go through that. There are copies up here for everybody, and I can email those out as well.
Jenny, in looking at this, the speed limit changes, would that be able to be implemented before the next year tourist season?
It should be, yeah. We just gotta get it before the commission and the Transportation Commission and get their approval. And at that point in time, it's just a matter of when, if we can get it done before the snow flies. I honestly don't know when it would get before the commission. It might be difficult to get that on their agenda before the end of this calendar year. I don't know
How
that.
often do they meet?
Good question, and I don't have a great answer for you. They have a schedule online, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head. I know they will be meeting in late October, and the primary focus of that meeting will be to adopt the TCP. I don't know if, our tentative construction plan, it's a 5-year construction plan. I don't know if we would be able to get this particular matter on their agenda in time for that meeting or not. I can get you that information if you want, and I'm happy to do that, but I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I apologize.
But definitely, this winter, spring, and then
Yes,
the
absolutely.
tourist season
Yep.
happening in May, June, July next
Yep.
year. It doesn't, it's not that difficult to keep
Yeah,
things.
people who live here, they wanna know that this is actually gonna happen.
Yep.
It's not gonna, are we gonna look for grants, or is this, we can do it with what we've got?
The signage, I think we can do with what we've got.
Yeah, as far as moving the speed limit signs, we'll take care of that.
Okay.
We will handle that with our resources, our maintenance staff will take care of that.
But how it works, if I remember, and I don't think either one of the newer commissioners have been through this before, but a project like this, a request comes from the commission to you, and then you take that to the transportation, right?
Yeah.
You're asking for our input or our request to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will
So
get,
that's
Okay.
we will ask for the local officials,
Yeah.
okay to proceed with the study if we get a request from whoever it may be.
Yeah.
And then once we complete the study, speeds specifically, we send that information to the local governing body, which in this case would be Lewis and Clark County. We ask for written comments on that particular study, and then we take it to the Transportation Commission. By state law, the Transportation Commission is the quasi-judicial body that has authority to set non-statutory speed limits throughout the state. Did that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Does that help?
Well, one other question, does this study, which is a traffic calming evaluation, does this study qualify for us to send it to the Transportation Committee, or does it have to be specifically titled, speed limit, or whatever you say?
Thank you. You want to take it?
You go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's another great question. This one is a little bit, it's a little abnormal from our normal speed zoning process, because it wasn't a specific speed study request. So what we're gonna do, and straighten me out here if you remember anything different from our conversation yesterday, our traffic engineer is actually gonna draft a line diagram. So as much as I'm talking about stretching stuff out and blah, 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 we're gonna get you a picture that you can look at to see what we're proposing. Yes, a map. And, I believe the intent is to accompany that with, did we talk about where we're gonna accompany that with a letter to be more explicit, to solicit a more explicit response from the county on the proposed action.
So what I intend to do is once, we'll give them the kind of general go-ahead to get that map established, so it's hard for me to visualize, you know, if 45 mile an hour is here, where's that gonna move to and where the 70 is gonna move to and when that gradual speed occurs. So we get that visual handout, we'll draft a letter for the commissioner's consideration that just pulls out that one recommendation that says, per this evaluation and this report, the speed study evaluation indicates that the mile markers are not in accordance with MDT's current standards. Please adjust your speed limits to meet your current requirements, which is now going to be Exhibit A, based upon the new map of that requirement. So that will be what you as commissioners will consider. That'll go to the Transportation Commission from MDT, and then their focus for their action item will be specifically on just that one solution and that one potential recommendation.
So there's gonna have to be another study.
No, that won't be a study. It'll just be your current standards aren't being met. Please meet your current standards, and that's what that looks like.
Okay.
It's officially comment from us.
Okay.
We provide comment to the commission, and then they consider it, and then tell Jimmy to take action.
Yep, and we're just gonna get you a little bit more information that is explicit to the speed zone issue.
One more thing to note, Commissioner, just I think might be public interest. MDT did a really nice table in this report that shows the average daily traffic count from US 287 north, south of Augusta, and west of Augusta. And I thought that it might be interesting to know the peak traffic flow during this community, during the traffic studies in the past, as far as getting traffic counts, was around 2018 to 2021. Was kind of during, you know, the early part of, before COVID, and then during COVID, they had a really high peak season during that travel area. In 2023, it was 925. So you kind of are jumping back up to that level as far as your traffic flow through this corridor. I just thought you might find that interesting to know. People are using that cut across, then that's about 1,000 people a day on average that travel through the Augusta community. Maybe that's just you guys driving back and forth through town. I think I saw a golf cart this morning 4 times go up and down Main Street. So, anyway, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay, how about public comment or questions? And if you do have public comment or questions, I'm gonna have you come up to the podium pretty please. Anybody with comment or questions? Okay. Commissioners, anything else on that one? All right, we'll move on from Public Works. Thank you very much. Mr. Nabbitt's not here today, I don't think, so no Forest Service report. Amber Johnson from Public Health, welcome. And reminder, we've added Public Health to our regular report agenda, and they kind of pick a different topic every month.
Yeah.
And so we'll hear what it is this time. Welcome.
You're right, Leo, you're not the only one struggling with that flag. Well, good morning, commissioners, good morning, Augusta residents. First, I would like to apologize for this morning's confusion. There was a comment on a post about junk vehicles that I updated after my confusion was corrected 30 minutes later. It's corrected on my end, but apparently it was not updated on Charlotte's, and so word got spread that there was a flu and COVID clinic here this morning. That is actually scheduled for November 8th from 9:30 to 11. I just spoke with Sarah yesterday. Again, Sarah was such an integral and continues to be an integral part of this community, and we are really sad that she's gone. I want to assure the residents here that we are in conversations with Blue Cross Blue Shield, in conversations with PureView, We are in conversations with our public health and nursing team to make a plan to get regular immunizations and services up here to Augusta. As you all know, as Sheriff Dutton alluded to, we've seen an influx of humans into Montana, and lack of housing has meant we're really struggling also sometimes with staffing, especially, so we are just recently we're full force on our public health and nursing team for the first time in a while. So we're making, priority plans to make sure that we're getting to Augusta. We'll be here November 8th in time to inoculate your community, in time for the holidays.
You only have 3 flies around your head.
That's one more than Leo, I guess. So again, I apologize if you're looking for somebody to crucify. I volunteer as tribute. I apologize for this morning's confusion. If you have any more questions about that, feel free to give me a call or yell at me if you would like. Any other questions about our COVID flu clinic on November 8th before I dive into something else?
Thank you.
Okay, this month's topic that I've come here to chat about is one of our favorite topics in Montana, which is booze. So Montana does lead the nation in heavy drinking. We're not here as teetotalers telling everybody to not drink, or that drinking is bad. That is not the message. Our message is moderation, as well as, championing the recovery and sobriety of people struggling with alcohol dependence and alcoholism. So I just wanted to, give a couple data points about Montana's drinking problem, and just give you, we've got a fly swat.
Oh, darn right. You just go ahead. Never mind the lady behind the curtain. But if I hit you with this thing, you'll understand.
Not to get political, but I'm feeling like Mike Pence right now. Fly. Oh.
It's not quite as shocking for flies to be hanging around a politician. She's relatively new at it, so I think that's why it's quite.
Yeah, the rest of us are just sitting here like.
Yeah, get used to it.
I think they just like the podium speaker.
Commissioner, you might be a little distracting for the presentation.
Okay.
Just,
Yes.
Just might.
One down.
just might be.
Well, this is distracting for her too.
Well, yeah.
There, 2 of them. Good job.
My champion.
Thank you.
Back to my very serious topic. So according to the CDC, excessive alcohol use is responsible for about 178,000 deaths in the United States each year. Each year, deaths from excessive drinking shorten the lives of those who die by an average of 24 years. Of the top 5 states that lose the most years and most lives to alcohol, Montana is in the top 5 again, and we rank number 1 in the nation for heavy drinking. I think this is a topic that can be really sensitive. People know it's a problem. We recently did a Casper survey in Lincoln, Augusta, and Helena, and the surrounding areas, and people did identify alcohol and substance misuse as something that they were concerned about. That was the number 1 concern in the Casper assessment that we recently did. So we know that it's a concern, right? But nobody wants to talk about it because it can hit home, especially if it hits you individually or your family. So I would just like to put out the word. I'm sure we've spoken about this before, but there's a number. It's called 211. It can connect you with resources in nearest you that can help with things like substance misuse. The tragic fact is that as more and more bars and distilleries and pubs open in Montana, the number of beds available to help people with drug and alcohol substance misuse are not keeping pace. So we have people struggling with alcohol and substance misuse in our community, and there doesn't seem to be a place for them to go to get help. I don't want that to be a hopeless thing, because obviously we know that there are AA meetings, and I don't know, maybe an Augusta resident can tell me if there are AA meetings here in Augusta, but I know that that's a tool that a lot of people use all over the country, probably in this community as well. So I don't want that to be a hopeless comment, but I think that if people want to get help, that we should figure out how to champion them to do so. And so we are working, we've created a new substance misuse coalition in Lewis and Clark County, and together we're working on solutions to figure out how do we open more beds, more treatment facilities, as well as change culture, because we know that alcohol is the water that we swim in. Every family-friendly event you go to is pushing and selling alcohol. Most of them, we take our kids with us to bars and breweries. Again, that's not a judgment, that's just culture. And, we have a culture of heavy drinking. We're losing a lot of lives and years to alcohol misuse. So, just something to be mindful of, and would just encourage all of us, one, to ask for help if we need it, and two, to, champion the sobriety and recovery of the people that we love around us. So, that being said, I have some surveys. We're doing an alcohol awareness campaign. It's probably going to be a year in length, and this is just phase one. It's an alcohol questionnaire, alcohol use questionnaire. If you don't have to take it, but I would love for you to do so. Spend 10 minutes with it. Everyone here has an alcohol story. All of us do. And again, this is not a judgment, because one of the questions we ask on here is, how has alcohol benefited your life? And for many people, being able to we use alcohol often to celebrate and to gather and to socialize, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually a wonderful thing. And for so many people who use but don't misuse alcohol, they can say it benefits their life. And so again, we're not trying to take a negative teetotaler approach to this, but if you'd be willing to share your stories and share your thoughts on the survey, then we're going to start organizing some community conversations about alcohol, and how as a culture and as a community, how we can encourage moderation as well as champion sobriety and recovery of our neighbors struggling with alcohol misuse. So I'm going to pass these around. Yes?
I have a question. You mentioned that, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that Montana is number 1
For heavy drinking.
and number in the top 5 for
years lost to alcohol misuse.
Okay, my question is, we have 1 million people in Montana, and Denver's got 1 million people in its city. So are these figures per capita?
Yes, the figures are per capita.
Okay, so it isn't like we've
It's
got
not the numbers, it's the rate.
the percentage
Yes,
of our
correct.
populace.
And the most people, the most lives and years that we're losing to alcohol are usually males over the age of 35. Now, 2/3 of those early deaths are caused by chronic illnesses caused by alcohol misuse, and that's heart disease, liver disease, and cancer. And then 1/3 of those deaths are due to things like alcohol misuse, drunk driving and vehicular crashes. And we also know, and I'm sure Sheriff Dutton can attest to, we really struggle with DUIs. Like, our rate of drunk driving in Montana is pretty high for the nation as well. So people are dying of vehicular crashes, of alcohol poisoning, as well as suicide. I think all of us know that suicide is a problem in Montana. We usually rank in the top 2 for suicide rates per capita. And we know for a fact that often suicide and alcohol use kind of correlate in our communities. So it's, alcohol doesn't necessarily cause everything, but it can amplify physical and social ills. If you are interested in sharing your story and your thoughts about alcohol use, I would love for you to spend some time with that. I've also printed off a handful of I wrote a column for the Helena IR this last month called Montana Has a Drinking Problem. It kind of shares with you some of those statistics, as well as our vision for the survey and our community conversations during Dry January of So I'll pass those around, take them if you want, leave them if you want. And at that time, I think I'm done. I'm happy to take any questions or comments if you have them.
Thank you. Please, yes.
Do I need to go up to the podium to
That
ask?
would be great if you're able, yes. You can, like, take it up there. Great.
My name's Emily Boyles, and I run an organization called Fabulous Fogies. I moved to Augusta from Helena about 2 years ago, and over the last couple of years, I've been increasing our organization here in the Augusta area. One of the reasons why we had some Facebook communication is because I think it's very important that as the health department, if you respond to an individual as an official organization of Lewis and Clark County, that it's just not a Facebook post off of a Facebook post, but it is publishable and it is public record. And so that becomes very important. But one of the things that our organization, we have 123 members as of yesterday, and about half of those are now in the Augusta area, all over the age of 50. Most do not go next door to the meal program. Most are middle class and retired. And one of our concerns has been that we don't know when things are happening in Augusta. Regarding the health department, the changes that have happened, most of our seniors are pretty electronically savvy. And unlike Helena that has 1 million Facebook pages, Augusta has one primary Facebook page. And so on behalf of our members, I would ask that you post those things also in the Augusta Facebook page so that people in Augusta can see. And that would be helpful for all of the departments, even the sheriff's department, for some of the information that you shared earlier today. We supply computers to some of our low-income members that don't have access, and we teach some of our seniors how to manage some of those things. And we have a number of medical issues, drugs and alcohol and prior use, and impact on aging medical issues is certainly one of the things that we discuss. And so things like your survey would be very helpful to have where citizens wouldn't have to repost.
Are you talking about the Augusta Public Health page?
No,
No.
There's a Augusta information page where primarily we are pretty easily able to get hundreds of people looking at that. We have about 350 or so wintertime people that live here, and that's primarily where many people go. That's where the gossip happens, and that's kind of the town hall.
Okay.
And so having that official information becomes very important to our community, because otherwise we do get repeats and repeats, and we all know what the game of telephone acts like, and we don't want to have that.
Sure.
And if there's anything that we can do, my phone number is on the list. We are more than happy to help facilitate to get the word out to other seniors in this area. Things like the flu clinic are important. We have some other concerns regarding public health, such as we have seniors here who have 3 different apps for their medical suppliers, can't figure out what to use or how to get into them. We've organized some volunteers from one of the local churches to be able to help seniors deal with some of their housekeeping issues. We're not able to get volunteers or paid people from whatever Montana Independent Living is calling themselves these days. They keep changing their name. So those kinds of things are really important. But by putting them electronically, when you put your name electronically, just please, it's very important to recognize that it may be somebody off the street, it may be somebody that has a lot of influence in the community. We have a lot of people that don't show up at our meetings, and with all of the new people, I think everyone in this room has been here at least 2 or 3 years, and we have many new people who don't know that you exist or that our community has this information.
Well, I'll take your phone number. I would love to bring Shelley up here and we can sit down and have a.
Absolutely.
And we'll
We're
bring up
happy to do
Blue
that.
Cross Blue Shield carrying van as well as Peerview. We'd love to have you part of that conversation.
We'd love to be part of that conversation and to be able to make sure that seniors in our community are getting their healthcare needs. Many people such as myself have chosen this as our retirement community. And we want to make sure that programs like the Public Health Department are here because we don't have a hospital here. We don't necessarily need one. but we want to make sure that those medical needs are being met for members of the community. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be scooting out. I have another meeting to get to.
Thank you for coming today, really appreciate it. Other comments or questions for public health? Thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here today.
I'll put these here if you
Yeah,
wanna pass
pass
them
them
on,
around
you
if you'd
can,
like.
but, or pass them on.
All right, we're on to other business, and we don't have anything under other business today. Our next meeting is October 11th, right here. Yeah, it's right here, October 11th. How about public comment on anything that is not on our agenda today? Anything you'd like to bring up, talk about that the commission might have interest in? Please, Commissioner.
Surprise, surprise.
Welcome again.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Susan Goodgeesy. And I wanted to let people in Augusta know that, and the commission know that Sarah Halcob used to kind of be the holder of durable medical equipment in Augusta. And and when I'm saying that durable medical, I'm talking about wheelchairs, crutches, you know, like when people get hurt or sick or whatever. And she kept that here. Now that Sarah's not here, guess what? That lives in my place. So, I'm working on a process to try to get the information to everybody that, my garage is where this stuff now lives. And that, I'm trying to put a kind of a process in place so that, people are gonna know how to access that. But I didn't have it in my garage. Sarah and I moved it over. I didn't have it in my garage for 10 minutes when I got a call for some crutches. So, I know that in Augusta, sometimes word can travel pretty fast. The other thing I wanted to let people know is that Sarah and I have been in conversations, thank you very much, Commissioner Hunthausen, for helping facilitate that, with Rocky Mountain Development Council for the food bank, okay? So, you know, Sarah's retired, and you all know where she lives, so we're putting together a plan that will keep the food bank open. Actually, one of the things is to have it open on like a regularly scheduled time so that people will be able to rely on that. And we will be working with Rocky Mountain Development Council to assist with that, to make sure that it's set up properly. And I'll be happy to take any questions with the indulgence of the commission, if anybody has any questions about that.
You bet. Commissioners first.
Because
any
we use
questions?
it gets used actually quite a bit.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Other than Sarah's house, is there another?
No, it's here.
It is here.
It's in this building, and where the county, thank you, Jenny, has allowed it to stay in this building. But when Sarah wasn't gonna be here all the time, you know, some things needed to change. We're in the process of making those changes, so that we can continue to offer that service. But you know, in this day and age, in such a litigious society, like we need to get insurance and, you know, all that different kinds of stuff. So Rocky Mountain Development Council is assisting us with that. And so we'll have a more structured organization, because Sarah, God love her, you know, people would call her up and, you know, she'd come down from the ranch, and, you know, she just can't keep doing that forever and ever. So we've got lots of good volunteers to help us, always looking for more. But people ask me if I miss working. I say, no, I'm still working, just not getting paid. Anyway, so thank you very much to the county, Jenny, for your forbearance on that, and we'll get that lined out. We're just working out the last details. So my initial plan is to put a letter, Jenny said she would help with that, that would go into the school newsletter, because that's the best way to get information to Augusta. And so anyway, that's it. And also, I just wanted to give kudos to the guy who works up at the dump. There was a young woman, I was up there on Monday, there was a young woman who was distraught, and I mean distraught, because she was standing on the very edge of the big containers, you know, where you throw in your trash, and she had a box that she'd thrown in, and when she did, it's my understanding that her wedding ring flew off with it, the box, into the huge dumpster. And so she asked the dump guy, would you mind climbing down and looking for it? And he did, and he found it. And so that doesn't happen every day. But he was very kind, he was very generous. Lloyd, I know you absolutely set the bar on being of service to me. Anyway, that's all that I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate the update as well. And yes, we're looking forward to that program continuing as well. So I think with the partnership between the county and Rocky Mountain and you citizens here, we should be able to make sure that continues. So thank you. Thank you for your perseverance there and poking the bear as well, making sure keep moving forward. So, okay. Commissioners, anything else you have? Anybody else have any public comment they'd like to contribute? This is your last chance.
Sorry.
It's all right, the flies win today, I think.
No, no.
No, the flies don't win, okay. October 11th, we'll meet you right back here, 11 o'clock, October 11th. Thank you all very much. We'll stand adjourned.